The little girl says, "Daddy, that woman said she wants to marry you." The janitor turns pale. "Just before we begin, your presence means a lot. Say hi and share where you're tuning in from, only if you want to." Hey there, friends. Before we dive into today's story, if you're enjoying these tales, please hit that like button and leave a comment below. Your support means the world to me. The marble floors of the Grand Belmont Hotel gleamed under Michael Torres's careful attention, each stroke of his mop creating perfect arcs across the lobby. At 34, he'd been working these early morning shifts for 3 years now, starting at 4 a.m. when the hotel was quiet, finishing just as the first guests began their day. His calloused hands gripped the mop handle with practiced ease, but his mind was elsewhere, on the small figure sleeping in the break room, curled up on the worn couch with her favorite stuffed rabbit. 6-year-old Emma had been coming to work with him for the past 2 weeks, ever since her regular babysitter had moved away. School wouldn't start for another month, and finding affordable childcare in Boston was like searching for gold in a parking lot. The hotel management had been surprisingly understanding, as long as Emma stayed out of sight during peak hours. "Daddy?" Her small voice echoed across the empty lobby. Michael turned to see Emma standing in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her brown eyes, her dark curls a wild mess around her face. She was still wearing her pajamas, pink ones with little unicorns that he'd bought at a thrift store last month. "Morning, Princess, you're up early." He leaned the mop against the wall and walked over to her, kneeling down to her level. "Bad dream?" Emma shook her head. Then suddenly her eyes went wide as she looked past him toward the hotel's grand entrance. "Daddy," she said, her voice carrying that matter-of-fact tone only children could manage. "That pretty lady from yesterday said she wants to marry you." The words hit Michael like a bucket of ice water. His face drained of color as he stood up slowly, his heart hammering in his chest. "What lady, Emma? What are you talking about?" "The one with the golden hair. She was so nice to me when you were cleaning the elevator. She gave me cookies and said you were handsome like a prince in my storybook." Emma's voice grew louder, carrying across the lobby just as the morning shift receptionist, Harold, walked in with his coffee. Michael's hands began to tremble. There had been a woman yesterday, elegant, wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than he made in 3 months. She'd stepped out of the penthouse elevator while he was servicing it, and Emma had been sitting nearby, coloring in her book. He'd barely noticed the interaction, focused on his work. But now his daughter's words sent alarm bells ringing through his mind. "Emma, sweetheart, you must have misunderstood." "No. Daddy." She said it twice. She said, "Your daddy is special and one day I'm going to marry him." She even gave me this. Emma pulled out a business card from her pajama pocket, one that had been decorated with glittery stickers, obviously Emma's addition. Michael took the card with shaking fingers. Catherine Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Industries. His blood ran cold. He knew that name. Everyone in Boston knew that name. But more importantly, he knew why she might know him, and it had nothing to do with his job as a janitor. Harold had stopped mid-sip of his coffee, staring at them with barely concealed curiosity. 2 early rising guests had just entered the lobby, their conversation halting as they caught Emma's declaration. Michael felt the walls closing in. This couldn't be happening. Not here. Not now. "Let's go back to the break room, Princess," he said, trying to keep his voice steady as he guided Emma away from the growing audience. But Emma, in the way only children could be, remained oblivious to his distress. "But Daddy, don't you want to marry her? She's like a real princess, and she smells like flowers. She said she's been looking for you for a very long time." The words echoed through the lobby like a gunshot. Michael's past. The one he'd buried 7 years ago when Emma's mother died. The one he'd run from. Changed his name to escape. It was catching up to him. Catherine Blackwood wasn't just any CEO. She was the woman whose father had destroyed his family's company, whose ruthless takeover had led to his own father's heart attack and death. And now, somehow, she'd found him. But why did she tell his daughter she wanted to marry him? What game was she playing? As he hustled Emma back to the break room, his mind raced. He'd have to leave, tonight, pack their few belongings, and disappear again. He'd done it before. He could do it again. But as he looked down at Emma's confused face, at the innocence in her eyes, he realized running might not be an option anymore. Whatever Catherine Blackwood wanted, she'd involved his daughter, and that changed everything. The break room smelled of stale coffee and industrial cleaner, a combination Michael had grown oddly comfortable with over the years. Emma sat on the couch, swinging her legs and humming while she colored, blissfully unaware of the storm she'd just unleashed. Michael's hand shook as he poured himself water from the cooler, his mind racing through possibilities, each more concerning than the last. 20 minutes later, his supervisor, Janet, knocked on the door. A woman in her 50s with kind eyes behind thick glasses. She'd always been good to him. "Michael, there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent." His stomach dropped. "I'm not done with my shift, Janet. Can they wait?" "It's Miss Blackwood, Michael, the Catherine Blackwood. She's in Mr. Henderson's office." Janet's voice held a mixture of confusion and concern. "What's going on? Why would she want to see our janitor?" Before he could answer, Emma piped up from the couch. "She's the princess lady. Daddy, she came back." Michael forced a smile. "Janet, could you watch Emma for a few minutes?" The walk to the hotel manager's office felt like a march to the gallows. Each step echoed in the hallway, matching the thundering of his heart. He'd spent 7 years as nobody, as Michael Torres the janitor, not Marcus Winters, the former financial analyst whose testimony could have sent half of Blackwood Industries' board to prison, if he'd lived long enough to give it. The office door was slightly ajar. Through the gap, he could see her, Catherine Blackwood, 31 years old, heir to a billion-dollar empire, sitting in Henderson's chair like she owned it. Which, he realized with a sinking feeling, she probably did. The Blackwood family owned half of Boston's commercial real estate. She looked up as he entered, and for a moment neither spoke. She was even more striking up close. Platinum blonde hair pulled back in an elegant twist, ice blue eyes that seemed to see straight through him, wearing a black suit that whispered money with every line. "Hello, Marcus," she said softly, and his blood froze. "My name is Michael Torres," he said firmly, closing the door behind him. "You have me confused with someone else." A sad smile played at her lips. "Your daughter is beautiful. She has your eyes, and her mother's spirit, I imagine. Sarah was lovely, from what I remember." The mention of his late wife's name hit him like a physical blow. "How dare you—" "Sit down, Marcus, please." Her voice was gentle, nothing like the corporate shark he'd expected. "We need to talk and we don't have much time." Against his better judgment, he sat in the chair across from her, acutely aware of his janitor's uniform, the chemical stains on his hands, the vast gulf between who he was now and who she was. "What do you want?" "First, I need you to know that I'm not my father," she began, her fingers nervously playing with a pearl necklace. "I took over Blackwood Industries 3 years ago after his death. I've spent that time trying to undo the damage he caused, trying to make amends." "Amends?" Michael's voice was sharp with bitterness. "Your father destroyed my family. My father died of a heart attack after losing everything. My mother never recovered. And when I tried to expose what really happened, when I gathered evidence of the illegal tactics, the bribes, the threats, suddenly my wife dies in a random car accident." Catherine's face paled. "Sarah's death wasn't random, but it wasn't us. It wasn't my father." The room seemed to spin. "What are you talking about?" "There was another player, Marcus. Someone on our board who was skimming funds, using my father's aggressive tactics as cover for their own crimes. When you started investigating, you weren't just threatening my father. You were threatening them. And they're still there, still on the board, still dangerous." Michael stood abruptly. "I don't want any part of this. I have a daughter to protect. That's why I'm here." Catherine stood too, her composure cracking. "They know who you are. They've always known. The only reason you've been safe these 7 years is because they thought you'd given up, that you were broken. But last week, something changed." "What changed?" She pulled out a tablet, showing him a photograph that made his knees weak. It was Emma at the park, playing on the swings, taken with a telephoto lens. "This was sent to my private email with a message. The janitor's daughter would make fine leverage. They know I've been looking into the old files. They know I found evidence that could expose them. And now they're threatening you to stop me." Michael sank back into the chair, his worst nightmares materializing. "Why tell Emma you wanted to marry me? What kind of sick game?" "Because I knew she'd repeat it. I knew it would force this conversation." Catherine moved closer, and he could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the weight she carried. "And because it's true in a way. I've been in love with the idea of Marcus Winters since I was 24, since I read the files, saw what you tried to do. You stood up to my father when no one else would. You lost everything trying to do the right thing." "Stop." Michael's voice was hoarse. "Just stop, this is insane. I have a plan," she continued. "Urgent now. But I need your help. The evidence you gathered 7 years ago, do you still have it?" Michael's laugh was bitter, hollow. "The evidence? You mean the files that got my wife killed? I burned everything the night after her funeral. Every document, every recording, every piece of proof that your father's empire was built on fraud and blood. Catherine's shoulders sagged, but her eyes remained determined. Not everything. You were too smart for that, Marcus. A financial analyst who spent 2 years building a case doesn't destroy everything. You kept something. Insurance. She was right, and they both knew it. Hidden in a safety deposit box in Springfield under yet another name were the most damning pieces, enough to reopen the investigation if the right prosecutor saw them. But admitting that meant trusting her, and trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. A knock at the door interrupted them. Janet's worried voice carried through. Michael? Emma's asking for you. She's getting upset. We're not done, Catherine said quickly, pressing a phone into his hand. This is encrypted, untraceable. I'll call you tonight. Please, Marcus. Michael, just hear me out. If not for yourself, then for Emma. They won't stay satisfied with just watching forever. Michael pocketed the phone and opened the door to find Emma in tears, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Daddy, I'm scared. Ms. Janet said you were in trouble. Did I do something wrong? No, Princess, no. He scooped her up, feeling her small arms wrap around his neck. Over her shoulder, he saw Catherine watching them, her expression unreadable. We're going home now. The rest of his shift was abandoned. Janet said she'd cover for him with Henderson. As he packed up Emma's coloring books and snacks, his mind churned. 7 years of hiding, of being nobody, and now everything was unraveling because a brilliant woman with her father's eyes, but apparently her mother's conscience, had decided to play detective. Their apartment in Dorchester was a far cry from the suburban home he'd once owned. 2 bedrooms, windows that didn't quite seal, radiators that clanged in the night, but it was safe, or had been. Now, as he walked Emma up the 3 flights of stairs, every shadow seemed threatening, every neighbor's glance suspicious. Inside, Emma curled up on the couch with her rabbit while Michael made her lunch, peanut butter and jelly, cut into triangles the way she liked. Daddy, she said between bites, is the princess lady why you look sad? I'm not sad, sweetheart. You are. You have your worried face. The same one when the rent man comes. She was too perceptive for 6, had been forced to grow up too fast by their circumstances. Is she a bad person? Michael sat beside her, pulling her close. I don't know yet, Em. Sometimes people are complicated, like in my stories, where the dragon is actually good but everyone thinks he's bad because he's scary. Something like that. That evening, after Emma was asleep, the encrypted phone buzzed. Michael stared at it for a long moment before answering. Thank you. Catherine's voice was soft. I wasn't sure you'd pick up. Talk fast. You have 5 minutes. The board member who killed Sarah. His name is Richard Stromberg. He's now the CFO, my supposed ally. But I have proof he's been embezzling for 15 years, using offshore accounts that were originally set up for my father's bribes. The problem is the proof isn't enough without context, without showing the pattern that started with your family's company. Michael gripped the phone tighter. Stromberg. You're sure? He hired the driver who hit Sarah's car. I have the wire transfers, the communications. It took me 3 years to trace it all. Her voice cracked slightly. I'm so sorry, Marcus. If my family hadn't started this, Sarah would still be alive. The rage that Michael had carefully buried for 7 years threatened to surface. Stromberg. He remembered him. Cold, calculating, always in Catherine's father's shadow. Why should I believe you? Why should I risk Emma's life for your crusade? Because he's getting bolder. 3 other people who opposed him have had accidents in the past 2 years. And because, she paused, because I've already started the process. I've alerted the SEC about irregularities. Stromberg knows it was me. That photo of Emma wasn't just a threat to make me stop. It was him showing both of us that he knows where we are, who we are. Michael walked to Emma's room, watching her sleep peacefully, rabbit tucked under her chin. What's your plan? We go public. Together. A press conference where Catherine Blackwood, CEO, stands with Marcus Winters, the whistleblower who tried to expose corruption 7 years ago. We present the evidence, yours and mine, simultaneously to the media and the authorities. He can't kill us both publicly, not with that much attention. You're naive if you think I've already arranged protection. Private security, the best money can buy. For you and Emma, starting tomorrow. Whether you help me or not, I won't let him hurt her. Michael was quiet for a long moment. Why did you really tell Emma you wanted to marry me? A soft laugh, tinged with sadness. Because I've spent 3 years studying your case, reading your words, understanding who you were, who you are, because you're the only person who ever stood up to my father with integrity intact. And because when I saw you yesterday, even in a janitor's uniform, I recognized the same man from the photos. Older, tired, but unbroken. Is it so strange that I might admire that? The security detail arrived at 6 a.m. Two discreet professionals who looked like insurance salesmen but moved like soldiers. Michael watched from his window as they surveyed the building, noting exits, checking sightlines. Emma was still asleep, mercifully unaware of how her world was about to change. The encrypted phone buzzed. Black car outside is mine. Please come down. We need to prepare. Bring Emma. There's breakfast. Michael wanted to refuse, to pack their meager belongings and run. But running hadn't saved Sarah. Running had just delayed the inevitable. He gently woke Emma, dressed her in her favorite purple dress, the one good outfit she owned, and carried her downstairs. The car was a subtle luxury, bulletproof glass and reinforced panels hidden beneath an unremarkable exterior. Catherine was in the back, laptop open, wearing jeans and a simple sweater. She looked younger, more vulnerable, nothing like the corporate titan from yesterday. "Princess Lady," Emma exclaimed, suddenly fully awake. "You came back. Hello, sweetheart." Catherine smiled warmly. "I brought donuts. Do you like chocolate?" As Emma happily munched on breakfast, Catherine showed Michael her files on a secured tablet. The evidence was damning. Years of transactions, coded communications, a web of corruption that went deeper than even he had suspected. Stromberg hadn't just killed Sarah. He'd eliminated 6 others who'd gotten too close to the truth. "This is why my father had a heart attack," Catherine said quietly. He discovered what Stromberg was doing 3 months before he died. The stress of knowing his most trusted advisor was a viper. I found his private journal. He was going to expose everything himself, make amends. Stromberg must have known. "You're saying Stromberg killed your father too?" "Induced heart attack. Untraceable drug. I can't prove it, but the timing." She shrugged helplessly. "My father was a bastard, Marcus, but he was my bastard. And in the end, he tried to do right." Emma looked up from her donut, chocolate smearing her face. "Are you talking about bad guys? Like in my shows?" Michael wiped her face gently. "Something like that, princess. Are you the good guys?" Catherine met Michael's eyes. "We're trying to be." They drove to a safe house in Cambridge, a brownstone that Catherine owned under a shell company. It was elegant but understated, with a security system that would make Fort Knox envious. Emma gasped at the size of it, running from room to room while the adults talked strategy. "The press conference is tomorrow," Catherine said. "Every major outlet will be there. I'm announcing a restructuring of Blackwood Industries, a new ethics initiative. That's when we'll drop the bomb about Stromberg. He'll run the moment he realizes what's happening. FBI will be waiting. I've been working with a task force for 6 months, feeding them information. They needed your evidence to make it stick." She paused. "The deposit box in Springfield, we need those files today." Michael stiffened. "How did you?" "I've had people watching you for 2 years, Michael. Not to harm, just to protect. I know about the 3 times you almost contacted reporters. I know about the nights you sit outside the police station, working up courage to go in. I know you visit Sarah's grave every Sunday at 3 p.m. The invasion of privacy should have enraged him. Instead, he felt oddly exposed, vulnerable. 2 years? Since I found the truth about Sarah. I wanted to approach you sooner, but I needed to be sure. Needed to have everything in place." She moved closer and he could smell her perfume. Jasmine. Expensive. Subtle. "I meant what I said to Emma. Maybe not marriage, that was impulsive. But I've been half in love with the idea of you for so long. The real you is." "Is what?" His voice was rougher than intended. "More than I expected. Stronger. Kinder. The way you are with Emma. The dignity you've maintained despite everything. My father would have been broken by far less." Emma bounded back into the room. "This house is like a castle. Can we live here, Daddy?" Before he could answer, one of the security guards entered quickly. "Ma'am, we have a problem. Stromberg's men are outside. 4 cars, at least a dozen men." Catherine's face went pale, but her voice remained steady. "He knows. Somehow he knows." She turned to Michael. "There's a safe room in the basement. Take Emma." The front window exploded in a shower of glass. Emma screamed and Michael threw himself over her, shielding her with his body as more windows shattered. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not in broad daylight, not with witnesses. "He's not playing by the rules anymore," Catherine gasped, pulling them toward the stairs. "He's desperate." They ran for the basement as the security team engaged the attackers. The sound of gunfire was deafening. Emma was crying, clinging to Michael as he carried her down the stairs. The safe room door was reinforced steel with supplies for a week. As it sealed behind them, the sounds of battle became muffled but didn't stop. Catherine was on her phone immediately, calling the FBI, the police, anyone who would listen. But her face grew increasingly grim with each call. They're being told it's a federal matter to stand down. Stromberg has people everywhere. The safe room was 12 by 15 feet of reinforced concrete and steel, with monitors showing feeds from hidden cameras throughout the house. They watched in horror as Stromberg's men systematically searched each room, their own security team nowhere to be seen, dead or driven off. Emma huddled against Michael, her small body trembling, stuffed rabbit clutched like a lifeline. "Why are the bad men here, Daddy?" she whispered. "Did we do something wrong?" "No, baby. Sometimes bad people do bad things to good people." He stroked her hair, trying to project calm while his heart raced. On the monitors, they could see Stromberg himself enter the house, a tall, silver-haired man in his 60s, moving with the confidence of someone who'd never faced consequences. Catherine was typing furiously on her laptop, uploading files to multiple cloud servers, sending encrypted emails to journalists worldwide. "If we don't make it out, at least the truth will—" "Stop," Michael said sharply, nodding toward Emma. "We're getting out." On the monitor, Stromberg stood in the kitchen, speaking directly to one of the cameras. "I know you're watching, Catherine. And you too, Marcus. Or should I say Michael? This doesn't have to end badly. I have a proposition." Catherine activated the intercom. "We're listening. Simple. You delete everything. Publicly announce you were mistaken about any irregularities at Blackwood Industries and resign. Marcus and his daughter disappear. I'll even provide new identities. Untraceable. Safe. Everyone walks away. After you murdered my father? After you killed Sarah?" Catherine's voice shook with rage. Stromberg's laugh was cold. "Your father was weak, ready to destroy everything we'd built over misguided conscience. As for Sarah Winters, that was regrettable but necessary. Marcus was getting too close to matters that didn't concern him." Michael's hands clenched into fists. Hearing the casual admission of his wife's murder, seeing the man responsible standing in their kitchen, every instinct screamed for vengeance. But Emma's weight against his side kept him grounded. "You have 1 hour to decide," Stromberg continued. "After that, well, gas leaks are so common in these old brownstones. Tragic, really. A young CEO, a janitor, and his daughter. The headlines write themselves." The monitor went dark as Stromberg's men disabled the cameras one by one. In the sudden blindness, Emma's crying grew louder. "I want to go home, Daddy. Please, can we go home?" "Soon, Princess, I promise." But even as he said it, he knew their tiny apartment would never be home again. That life was over. Catherine pulled out a second phone, another encrypted device. "I have one more card to play. Someone Stromberg doesn't know about." She dialed quickly. "It's me. Code 7. Yes, now." Within minutes, they heard new sounds above. Not gunfire, but something else. Shouting, confusion, then silence. Long, tension-filled silence. Emma had fallen into an exhausted sleep in Michael's arms, her face still streaked with tears. 20 minutes passed before a knock came at the safe room door. 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. Morse code for SOS. Catherine checked a hidden monitor, one Stromberg's men hadn't found. A woman stood outside, mid-40s, Asian features, wearing tactical gear. "That's Lynn," Catherine breathed in relief. "Former CIA, now private contractor. She's been my real security for 3 years." The door opened to reveal not just Lynn, but a full tactical team. The house above was secure, Stromberg's men detained. But Stromberg himself was gone, escaped in the chaos. "We need to move," Lynn said tersely. "He'll regroup, come back with more men or lawyers, whichever works faster. The press conference needs to happen now before he can spin this." They transferred to an armored vehicle, Emma still sleeping against Michael's shoulder. The drive to the federal courthouse took 30 minutes. The longest 30 minutes of Michael's life. Every car could be a threat, every intersection an ambush point. But they arrived safely. Inside, a room full of FBI agents and prosecutors waited. The evidence was presented, documents authenticated, testimonies given. Emma woke up confused, clinging to Michael as serious people in suits asked her father questions she didn't understand. "Mr. Winters," the lead prosecutor said, "with your evidence and Ms. Blackwood's documentation, we can issue immediate arrest warrants." But Stromberg has resources, connections, he might run. He won't run, Catherine said with certainty. He's too arrogant. He'll try to fight this, discredit us, turn it around somehow. She was right. Within an hour, news broke. Stromberg was holding his own press conference, claiming Catherine had orchestrated everything to seize full control of Blackwood Industries. He painted himself as the victim, Marcus as a disgruntled former employee Catherine had manipulated. "We go live in 30 minutes, Catherine told Michael. "Once we're on camera, he can't touch us without proving our point. Are you ready?" Michael looked down at Emma, who was coloring quietly in a corner, seemingly recovered from her earlier terror with the resilience only children possessed. Everything he'd done for 7 years had been to protect her. Now, protecting her meant stepping into the light. "I need to tell Emma first. She deserves to know why her life is about to change." He knelt beside his daughter, taking her small hands in his. "Princess, remember when you asked about bad guys? Well, Daddy needs to help catch one. A real bad guy who hurt people we loved. But to do that, everyone's going to know our story." Emma's eyes were serious, older than her 6 years. "The bad man who made Mommy go to heaven?" Michael's throat tightened. He'd never told her about Sarah's death being anything but an accident, but children understood more than adults realized. "Yes, baby. Him. Then you have to stop him, Daddy. That's what heroes do." She hugged him tight, then looked at Catherine. "You'll help my daddy?" "With everything I have," Catherine promised. The press room was packed, reporters jostling for position, cameras ready. Michael stood backstage with Emma's hand in his, watching Catherine take the podium first. She was magnificent, composed, authoritative, every inch the CEO of a billion-dollar company. "Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to reveal will shock you. For the past 15 years, Blackwood Industries has harbored a criminal. Not just any criminal, but one who has murdered at least 7 people to protect his embezzlement of over $200 million. The room erupted. Catherine raised her hand for silence. "This man is Richard Stromberg, our current CFO. And beside me today is the brave whistleblower who tried to expose this corruption 7 years ago, losing everything in the process: his career, his home, and most tragically, his wife. Marcus Winters, whom many of you might have known as Michael Torres, has been hiding in plain sight as a janitor at the Grand Belmont Hotel, protecting his daughter from the man who murdered her mother." Michael stepped forward, Emma still clutching his hand. The cameras swung toward them, and he could feel Emma shrink against his leg. He picked her up, holding her close as he approached the microphone. "My name is Marcus Winters," he began, his voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. 7 years ago, I discovered evidence of systematic fraud and corruption within Blackwood Industries. When I tried to expose it, my wife Sarah was murdered in what was staged as a car accident. I've been hiding ever since, protecting my daughter Emma, working as a janitor, hoping to be forgotten. But sometimes hiding from evil only lets it grow stronger. He detailed everything: the evidence, the threats, Sarah's death, the years of fear. Emma buried her face in his shoulder when he talked about her mother, but she didn't cry. Behind them, Catherine's team displayed documents on massive screens: wire transfers, emails, photographs, an undeniable trail of criminality. "Stromberg came to my home today," Michael continued. "He admitted to killing my wife. He threatened my 6-year-old daughter. He tried to burn us alive in Catherine Blackwood's house. This man isn't just a white-collar criminal, he's a killer who believes his money puts him above the law." A reporter shouted, "Where is Stromberg now?" "Being arrested," Catherine answered, checking her phone. "FBI agents are at his estate as we speak." She paused, reading a new message, her face paling. No, he can't." She grabbed the microphone. "Stromberg's chartered a private jet. He's heading for the airport now, he's running." The room exploded into chaos, reporters rushing to file stories, cameras swinging wildly. In the confusion, no one noticed the man in a maintenance uniform at the back of the room until he was already moving. Stromberg himself, disguised but recognizable to those who knew him, pushing through the crowd toward the stage. "You destroyed everything," he screamed at Catherine. "Your father's legacy, our empire." Security moved to intercept him, but he was faster than expected for a man his age. He lunged toward the stage, toward Emma, a knife appearing in his hand. Michael turned, shielding Emma with his body, preparing for the impact. The shot was precise, professional. Stromberg crumpled 3 feet from the stage, Lynn standing in the doorway, her weapon still raised. The knife clattered across the floor as Stromberg gasped, clutching his shoulder. "Wounded, not killed." "Everyone stay calm," Lynn commanded. her team securing Stromberg as medics rushed in. The threat is contained. Emma was crying now, the violence too much for her young mind to process. Michael held her tight, whispering reassurances as Catherine stood frozen, staring at the man who'd killed her father bleeding on the floor. "It's over," she whispered. Then louder to the cameras still rolling. "It's over. Richard Stromberg will face justice for his crimes. Blackwood Industries will be rebuilt on a foundation of integrity, and Marcus Winters and his daughter will never have to hide again." As FBI agents led Stromberg away, he turned back one last time. "You think you've won? You have no idea what you've started. There are others more powerful than me. They won't let this stand." The threat hung in the air, but Michael felt no fear. Not anymore. He'd spent 7 years afraid, and it had cost him everything except Emma. Now standing in the light with his daughter in his arms and an unexpected ally beside him, he realized the truth. Courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was choosing to act despite it. "Daddy," Emma whispered, "is it really over? Are we safe now?" Michael met Catherine's eyes over his daughter's head. There would be trials, testimonies, probably more threats, but there would also be justice for Sarah, safety for Emma, and perhaps, though he hardly dared think it, a future he'd never imagined. "We're safe, Princess," he said, meaning it for the first time in 7 years. "We're finally safe." But as they left the courthouse, surrounded by security and reporters, Michael noticed Catherine checking her phone repeatedly, her expression growing increasingly concerned. Whatever she was reading, she didn't share. Not yet. And in the excitement of the moment, he didn't ask. He should have asked. 3 weeks had passed since Stromberg's arrest, and life had taken on a surreal quality Michael couldn't quite grasp. They lived in Catherine's Beacon Hill townhouse now. She'd insisted, citing security concerns that were hard to argue with. Emma had her own room, painted purple at her request, with more toys than she'd ever dreamed of. But prosperity came with a price Michael was only beginning to understand. "Daddy, why does Miss Catherine look sad when she thinks no one's watching?" Emma asked over breakfast, her perception sharp as always. Michael glanced toward the study where Catherine had been holed up since dawn, surrounded by lawyers and documents. The trials were set to begin next month, but something else was consuming her, something she wouldn't discuss. "Grown-up problems, Princess, nothing for you to worry about." But he was worried. Catherine had been receiving calls at odd hours, stepping out to take them in private. Her security detail had doubled, and Lynn shadowed her everywhere now, hand never far from her concealed weapon. That afternoon, while Emma napped, Michael found Catherine in the garden, a letter clutched in her trembling hands. She looked up as he approached, tears streaming down her face, the first time he'd seen her truly vulnerable. "What is it?" He sat beside her on the stone bench, close enough to read the letterhead. "Blackwood Medical Institute. It's about my mother," she whispered. "She didn't die of cancer like I was told. She was murdered, poisoned slowly over months, made to look like illness." She handed him the letter. The doctor who treated her kept tissue samples, ran tests years later when the technology improved. He only felt safe coming forward now that Stromberg's arrested. Michael read the technical details, his blood running cold. The poison was sophisticated, virtually undetectable at the time. "Catherine, this means that Stromberg killed her too. She was going to divorce my father, take half his assets. She knew about some of his dealings, threatened to expose them if he fought the divorce. So Stromberg eliminated her, made my father grateful for solving a problem." Her voice broke. "I was 12, Marcus. I held her hand while she died, thinking it was God's will, and all along it was murder." Without thinking, Michael pulled her close, letting her sob against his shoulder. She felt fragile in his arms, nothing like the powerful CEO the world saw. "I'm so sorry." 20 years, she gasped between sobs. "He's been killing for 20 years. How many others? How many families destroyed?" Emma's voice interrupted them. "Why is Miss Catherine crying?" They pulled apart to find Emma in the doorway, rabbit in hand, looking concerned. Catherine wiped her eyes quickly, forcing a smile. "Just sad about something that happened a long time ago, sweetheart." Emma walked over and climbed onto Catherine's lap, hugging her with all the fierce love a 6-year-old could muster. "My daddy says hugs make everything better. Is that true?" Catherine held the little girl close, meeting Michael's eyes over Emma's head. "Yes, Emma, that's absolutely true." That evening, after Emma was asleep, they sat in the study reviewing the mounting evidence. With this new revelation about Catherine's mother, the case against Stromberg had become even more complex. The FBI had uncovered 12 murders over 2 decades, plus fraud exceeding $500 million. There's something else, Catherine said, pulling up files on her laptop. Remember what Stromberg said at the courthouse about others more powerful than him? Michael nodded, remembering the threat all too well. I've been investigating. Stromberg wasn't working alone. He was part of something bigger, a network of corrupt executives across multiple corporations, all protecting each other, all willing to kill to maintain their power. She showed him a chart that looked like a spider web, names and companies interconnected. We didn't just expose one man, Marcus, we lit a fuse. Before he could respond, Lynn burst in. We have a problem. 3 black SUVs approaching, tactical teams inside, not government plates. Catherine's face went white. They're here, the others, they're making their move. Get Emma, Michael said, already moving. But Lynn stopped him. No time. Safe room now. I'll get the girl. They ran for the basement as windows shattered upstairs. Deja vu from 3 weeks ago, but worse. These weren't Stromberg's hired thugs. These were professionals. Michael could hear them moving through the house with military precision. Lynn appeared with Emma half asleep and confused. Daddy? Is it the bad men again? We're playing hide-and-seek, Princess, he said, trying to keep his voice calm as they sealed themselves in the safe room. We need to be very quiet. On the monitors, they watched armored figures search the house. One stopped at a camera, removing his helmet to reveal a face Michael recognized from newspaper headlines. Senator James Crawford, head of the banking committee, one of the names on Catherine's web. Ms. Blackwood, Crawford said to the camera, you've caused enough trouble, come out and we'll make this painless. Your father understood the rules of the game. You should have learned from him. Catherine activated the intercom. My father was a bastard, but at least he had limits. You're just murderers in expensive suits. Crawford's laugh echoed through the speakers. Your father had limits? He destroyed 32 companies, ruined hundreds of lives. We just cleaned up his messes, removed obstacles. We're not murderers, Ms. Blackwood. We're architects of necessary evils. Necessary? Catherine's voice shook with rage. You killed my mother. Stromberg was just your weapon. Your mother was going to expose certain arrangements. Congressional insider trading, defense contracts, pharmaceutical trials that weren't quite legal. She had to go. Crawford's tone was conversational, as if discussing the weather. Just like you need to go now. You and Mr. Winters and, regrettably, his daughter. Loose ends are messy, Emma whimpered, pressing closer to Michael. He covered her ears, but she pushed his hands away. I'm not a baby, Daddy. I know they're bad people. Lynn was on her phone, speaking rapidly in Mandarin. Backup's 10 minutes out. But Crawford brought 20 men. We're outgunned. Not necessarily, Catherine said, typing furiously. I've been preparing for this. She pulled up an app on her phone. Every conversation in this house for the past 3 weeks has been recorded and streamed to secure servers, including Crawford's confession just now. She hit a button, and suddenly Crawford's voice was playing on every news channel. Streaming on social media, his admission of murder and corruption spreading like wildfire. Within seconds, her phone exploded with calls from reporters. On the monitor, Crawford's face contorted with fury. You clever bitch. Fine. We'll make it look like a murder-suicide. Desperate CEO kills the family she was obsessed with, then herself. The recordings will be dismissed as deepfakes. The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red. They could hear explosions above. Not gunfire, but breaching charges. They were coming through the reinforced doors by force. How long will the safe room hold? Michael asked. Against this, maybe 5 minutes, Lynn replied grimly. Catherine grabbed Michael's hand. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. You and Emma should have stayed hidden. No, Michael said firmly. Hiding didn't save Sarah. At least now we're fighting back. Emma tugged on his shirt. Daddy, remember in my cartoon when the good guys were trapped? They called for help from everyone they'd ever helped. Catherine's eyes widened. She's right. We've helped people. All the families Stromberg hurt. All the employees who suffered under my father's practices. She grabbed her phone again, opening Twitter. This is Catherine Blackwood. We're under attack at 451 Beacon Hill. Senator Crawford and armed men are trying to kill us, including a 6-year-old girl. We need help, please. The message went viral in seconds. Within minutes, sirens filled the air. Not just police, but news vans. Civilian cars. People were coming. Crawford's voice crackled through the intercom. You think a mob will save you? We own the police, but on the monitors, they could see something Crawford couldn't. FBI vehicles arriving, federal marshals, and leading them was someone unexpected. Judge Patricia Hayes, the one judge in Boston Crawford couldn't buy. Senator Crawford, Judge Hayes's voice boomed through a megaphone. This is a federal warrant for your arrest. You're surrounded. Stand down. The battle upstairs intensified. Crawford's men weren't surrendering. The safe room door shuddered under impact. They were trying to break through before arrest. The metal began to buckle. Behind me, Lynn ordered, drawing her weapon. But it was Emma who surprised them all. She grabbed the intercom microphone and pressed the button. Stop it, her young voice echoed through the house. Stop being mean. My mommy is in heaven because of bad people like you. You're not strong, you're just bullies. And bullies always lose. The assault on the door paused. On the monitor, they could see Crawford's men exchanging glances. Some of them had children too. One man, younger than the others, set down his weapon. I didn't sign up to kill kids, he said, removing his helmet. I'm done. Stand your ground, Crawford screamed. But more men were dropping their weapons. The image of a 6-year-old girl standing up to them had broken something, reminded them of lines that shouldn't be crossed. The FBI breached the upper floors. The gunfire was brief. Most of Crawford's men surrendered immediately. Crawford himself tried to run but was tackled by Lynn, who'd slipped out of the safe room the moment it was clear. As they emerged from the basement, Emma in Michael's arms, they found chaos. Media everywhere, FBI agents processing arrestees, and in the middle of it all, Crawford in handcuffs, his political career destroyed in minutes by a little girl's brave words. You haven't won, Crawford spat at them. The network is bigger than you know. International, you've only caught the American branch. Then we'll catch them all, Catherine said quietly. Every last one. An FBI agent approached. Ms. Blackwood, Mr. Winters, we'll need statements and we'll need to put you in protective custody until— No, Michael interrupted. No more hiding. No more custody. We're done running. The months that followed were a whirlwind of trials, testimonies, and revelations that shook the nation. Crawford's arrest had triggered a domino effect. Executives, politicians, and judges across the country were exposed. The network Catherine had uncovered went deeper than anyone imagined, reaching into international banking, arms dealing, and human trafficking. Michael had returned to his real name, his real profession. He worked as a forensic accountant for the FBI now, unraveling the financial web Crawford and his associates had spun. Emma attended a private school with security that would make the Pentagon jealous. And Catherine, she'd transformed Blackwood Industries into something her father never could have imagined, a force for ethical business practices. But the past wasn't done with them yet. On a cold December morning, 6 months after Crawford's arrest, Michael arrived at Catherine's office to find her staring at an old photograph. It showed a young couple at their wedding, Gerald Blackwood and his bride Elizabeth. What is it? He asked, setting down the coffee he'd brought her, a ritual that had developed between them, along with other things they didn't quite name. My mother's maiden name was Winters, she said quietly. Elizabeth Winters. Michael's blood ran cold. That's impossible. Winters is common. Your father was Thomas Winters. He had a sister, Elizabeth, who disappeared when she was 22. The family thought she'd died. Catherine looked up at him, eyes bright with unshed tears. She didn't die. She eloped with Gerald Blackwood against her family's wishes, changed her name completely, cut all ties. The room spun. Michael sank into a chair. You're saying we're cousins? Second cousins, technically. My mother was your father's sister. She laughed bitterly. The irony is perfect, isn't it? Blackwood destroyed the Winters family business, not knowing he was destroying his wife's family legacy. And when my mother found out, when she discovered what Gerald had done to her brother, she threatened to expose him. So Stromberg killed her. Michael's voice was hollow. God, there's more. Catherine pulled out a document. A will, old and yellowed. Your grandfather's will. He left everything in trust for his children and their descendants. With your father dead and my mother legally erased from the family, you and Emma are the only legal heirs. Except, she showed him the next page. My mother added a codicil before she died, when she knew the truth. If the Winters and Blackwood lines ever reunited, the combined inheritance would create a fund for victims of corporate malfeasance. She knew Marcus. Somehow she knew this day would come. Michael stood, pacing to the window. Boston sprawled below, a city of secrets and shadows. Emma can never know. It would destroy her to think. To think what? That out of tragedy, something good emerged? That her mother's death, horrible as it was, led to justice for dozens of families? Catherine joined him at the window. Emma's stronger than you think. Children understand redemption better than adults. This is why you told her you wanted to marry me. You knew. From the beginning you knew. Catherine shook her head. I suspected, but that's not why. I meant what I said. I fell in love with your courage before I ever knew we were connected. The blood relation is distant enough that it's legal, but it changes everything. Michael turned to face her. 6 months of careful dancing around their growing feelings, and now this. Catherine, The door burst open. Lynn entered, face grim. We have a problem. Stromberg's dead. What? How? Poisoned in federal prison. Same method used on Mrs. Blackwood 20 years ago. Someone's cleaning house. Eliminating anyone who could testify about the network's international connections. Michael's phone rang. Emma's school. His heart stopped. Mr. Winters? Emma's fine, the principal said quickly. But there's someone here claiming to be her grandmother. She has documentation, DNA tests. She says her name is Elizabeth Blackwood. The phone slipped from Michael's numb fingers. Catherine caught it, her face pale. That's impossible. My mother is dead. I was at her funeral. Lynn was already pulling up records on her tablet. Elizabeth Blackwood. Death certificate filed 20 years ago. But, she frowned. The body was cremated immediately. No autopsy despite the suspicious illness. Your father signed off on everything. Someone faked her death, Michael breathed. But who? And why? Catherine was already moving, grabbing her coat. We're going to that school, now. The drive was tense, silent, except for Lynn coordinating security. Michael's mind raced. If Elizabeth Blackwood was alive, if she'd been hiding for 20 years, what did she know? What was she planning? They arrived to find the school in subtle lockdown, students in classrooms, security at every entrance. In the principal's office sat Emma, coloring calmly, and beside her, the woman was in her 60s, elegant despite years that had clearly been hard. She had Catherine's bone structure, Emma's eyes. She looked up as they entered and her face crumpled. Catherine, my beautiful girl, you look just like I dreamed. Catherine stood frozen. You're dead. I mourned you. I held your hand. You held the hand of a woman named Patricia Mills, dying of the same cancer I was supposed to have. Your father paid her family $5 million to play my part. I was already gone, hidden away. The revelation hung in the air, like a physical presence. Catherine swayed, and Michael steadied her, his own mind reeling from the impossibility of it all. Emma looked up from her coloring, confused by the tension. Daddy, who is this lady? She said she's my grandma, but you said I don't have any grandmas. Elizabeth, if it was really her, smiled sadly. I'm your great-aunt, sweetheart. Your daddy's aunt and Catherine's mother. I've been away for a very long time. Why? Emma asked with a child's directness. Because bad people wanted to hurt me and I had to hide to stay safe. Catherine found her voice, sharp with 20 years of grief, turned to anger. You let me believe you were dead. You let me watch someone die thinking it was you. How could you? Because the alternative was letting them kill you too. Elizabeth's voice broke. Crawford, Stromberg, the others, they made it clear. If I disappeared, truly disappeared, they'd leave you alone. If I fought, if I tried to expose them, they'd kill you in front of me first. So you ran. The accusation in Catherine's voice was damning. I ran to save you, and I've spent 20 years gathering evidence, building a case so ironclad that when the time came, when someone was brave enough to stand up to them, I could end them all. Elizabeth pulled out a thick envelope, Swiss bank accounts, recorded conversations, photographs of meetings, contracts for murders, everything. Lynn had been typing rapidly on her phone. She checks out. Facial recognition, DNA markers from hair samples we collected. This is Elizabeth Blackwood. Michael spoke carefully. Where have you been for 20 years? Ireland mostly. Remote cottage, different name. I worked as a bookkeeper, lived quietly, and waited. When Stromberg was arrested, when Crawford fell, I knew it was time. She looked at Marcus. Your father was my brother. He never knew I married Gerald. By the time he built his company, I was already trapped in Gerald's world, and then it was too late. You could have warned him, Michael said, anger building. You could have saved my father. My wife. I tried. Elizabeth's composure cracked. I sent anonymous warnings, tried to funnel money to help. But every move I made, they traced. 3 people died because I tried to help indirectly. So I stopped. I became a ghost. Emma had put down her crayons, watching the adults with those two perceptive eyes. You're all sad about old things, but isn't it good that everyone's together now? The simple wisdom of a child cut through the anger. Catherine sank into a chair, tears flowing freely. 20 years, Mother. 20 years of thinking I'd failed you, that I hadn't been there enough when you were sick. Elizabeth moved to embrace her daughter, but Catherine pulled back. No, not yet. Maybe not ever. You don't get to just return from the dead and expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything, Elizabeth said quietly. But the network, the international connections Crawford mentioned, they're moving. They know I'm alive now. They'll come for all of us. Let them come, Michael said grimly. We're done being victims. Lynn's phone buzzed urgently. We need to move now. Satellite intel shows multiple vehicles converging on this location. Professional teams. They evacuated quickly. Emma in Michael's arms, Catherine and Elizabeth in tense silence, security flanking them. As their armored convoy pulled away, explosions rocked the school parking lot where they'd been moments before. They're not trying to be subtle anymore, Lynn observed. This is open war. Elizabeth pulled out a phone Michael didn't recognize. Old, basic, untraceable. She dialed a long number from memory. It's Phoenix, yes, after 20 years. Activate everything. What did you just do? Catherine demanded. What I should have done years ago. I just released everything to every major news outlet, law enforcement agency, and intelligence service worldwide. Terabytes of data. The network will be exposed on every continent simultaneously. The convoy stopped at a safe house Michael didn't know existed, one of Elizabeth's, apparently. Inside was a command center that would make the CIA jealous. Screens showed news feeds from around the world, already beginning to react to the data dump. Hong Kong markets crashing, one analyst reported. 3 cabinet ministers arrested in Germany. The president of Brazil calling emergency sessions. You just destabilized the global economy, Catherine breathed. I destabilized a cancer that was eating the global economy, Elizabeth corrected. The recovery will be painful but necessary. Emma tugged on Michael's sleeve. Daddy, are we the good guys or the bad guys? Because good guys don't usually blow things up. Before he could answer, one of the screens flashed red. A face appeared, old, distinguished, terrifying in its calm certainty. Michael didn't recognize him, but both Catherine and Elizabeth gasped. Alexander Volkov, Elizabeth whispered. The real head of the network. The man on screen smiled coldly. Hello, Elizabeth. 20 years of hide-and-seek and you finally showed yourself. Your little data dump is impressive but futile. We've survived worse, but you, your daughter, and the Winters family, you won't survive the night. The screen went dark. Immediately, alarms began blaring. Lynn checked her tablet, face paling. We've got incoming. Military aircraft, no identification. They'll be here in 10 minutes. Elizabeth stood, suddenly looking every one of her 63 years. There's one more card to play, but it will cost everything. Blackwood Industries, the Winters Trust, all of it. Do it, Catherine said without hesitation. You don't even know. I don't care. I don't. Emma's life is worth more than any fortune. Elizabeth's final card was something none of them expected. She led them to a reinforced basement room where a man sat waiting. Tall, graying, wearing a simple suit. Michael recognized him from newspaper photos. Robert Mueller III, former director of the FBI. Hello, Elizabeth, Mueller said calmly. I've been waiting 20 years for you to activate this protocol. You knew? Catherine gasped. You knew she was alive? I helped her disappear, Mueller replied. The network had penetrated too deep. We needed someone outside the system, someone they thought was dead. Gathering evidence. Elizabeth was our ghost in the machine. The building shook. The aircraft were beginning their assault. Emma whimpered, and Michael held her tighter. We have 6 minutes, Mueller continued, unfazed. Elizabeth, the authentication codes? She handed him a briefcase Michael hadn't noticed before. Inside were documents, USB drives, and something that made Mueller nod grimly. Nuclear football codes. The network made one crucial mistake, Mueller explained. They placed their own people in key military positions, including nuclear command. These codes will lock them out, trigger automatic arrests of every compromised officer. But it will also trigger something else. What? Michael demanded. A complete restructuring of global intelligence services. Every classified document about corporate malfeasance for the past 30 years will be declassified. Governments will fall, Markets will crash properly this time, but the network will be destroyed completely. Do it, Catherine said again. Mueller began typing on a secured laptop. Around the world, dominoes began falling faster. The attacking aircraft suddenly veered off, their pilots receiving new orders as compromised commanders were arrested mid-flight. But Volkov wasn't finished. On the screens they watched as he appeared on international television, spinning a narrative. Elizabeth Blackwood, mentally ill, faking her death, now trying to destroy the world economy out of spite. Catherine Blackwood, corrupted by her mother's madness. Marcus Winters, a disgraced criminal mastermind. He's good, Mueller admitted. Half the world will believe him. Then we need to prove him wrong, Emma said suddenly. Everyone turned to stare at the 6-year-old. In my shows, when the bad guy lies, the good guys show everyone the truth. Can't we do that? Elizabeth knelt beside her great niece. How would we do that, sweetheart? Go on TV too. Tell them the real story. Show them you're not crazy, just sad and brave. Michael and Catherine exchanged glances. It was naive, simplistic, and possibly brilliant. Mueller, can you get us live airtime? Catherine asked. I can do better. Emergency broadcast system. Every screen in America, and our allies will mirror it. They had minutes to prepare. Elizabeth quickly applied makeup to cover 20 years of hiding. Catherine stood tall, every inch the CEO. Michael held Emma, who insisted on being part of it. This is about family, Emma said firmly. I should be there. The broadcast began. Mueller introduced them, his gravitas lending credibility. Then Elizabeth spoke, her voice clear and strong. My name is Elizabeth Winters Blackwood. 20 years ago, I discovered my husband was part of a criminal network that murdered innocent people for profit. When I tried to expose them, they threatened to kill my daughter. So I disappeared, let them think I was dead, and spent 2 decades documenting their crimes. She held up photographs, meetings, murders, money transfers. Each one dated, verified, undeniable. Catherine came next. My father was not a good man, but even he tried to stop this network in the end, and they killed him for it. They killed my Aunt Sarah Winters. They tried to kill my cousin Marcus and his daughter Emma. They've killed hundreds. Stolen billions, corrupted democracy itself. Michael spoke about Sarah, about 7 years of hiding, about choosing justice over safety. His voice broke when he described Emma growing up without her mother, but he pressed on. Then Emma stepped forward, and the world held its breath as a 6-year-old faced the cameras. My name is Emma Winters. I'm 6 3/4. The bad men killed my mommy when I was a baby. They tried to hurt us again and again. But my daddy says being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing what's right even when you are scared. So I'm being brave now. She held up her stuffed rabbit. This was my mommy's. She gave it to me before she went to heaven. She can't come back, but maybe we can stop other mommies from going to heaven too soon. Please help us stop the bad men. The broadcast ended. Silence fell. Then, slowly, responses began pouring in. Not from governments or corporations, but from people. Millions of ordinary citizens demanding justice, refusing to let the narrative be spun. Volkov tried to counter, but his support was crumbling. Without Crawford, without Stromberg, without his network, he was just an old man with blood on his hands. Within an hour, Interpol had him in custody. Within a day, the network was completely exposed. Within a week, the world had changed. But in that safe house basement, as the dust settled, Emma asked the question that mattered most. Does this mean we can be a real family now? Michael looked at Catherine, at Elizabeth, at the strange, broken, brave family tragedy had created. What do you think? He asked Catherine quietly. She took his hand, then reached for her mother with the other. I think Emma's right. We're already a family. We just need to make it official. 1 year later, the autumn sun streamed through the windows of the rebuilt Winters Foundation headquarters. What had once been Blackwood Industries had been transformed. The fortune split between victim compensation and a new organization dedicated to corporate accountability. The building hummed with purpose, lawyers and accountants working to help families destroyed by corporate greed. Emma, now 7 3/4 as she insisted on specifying, sat in the conference room working on homework while Michael reviewed cases. She was thriving. Therapy had helped with the trauma, and having a stable, safe life had worked wonders. Her laughter came easier now, her nightmares less frequent. Daddy, she said, looking up from her math worksheet. Ms. Patterson says I need to write about my hero for class. Can I write about Mommy? Michael's throat tightened as it always did when Emma mentioned Sarah. Of course, Princess. She would love that. I want to write about you too, and Catherine, and Great Aunt Lizzie. Emma had started calling Elizabeth that months ago, and it had stuck. You're all heroes. Catherine entered, carrying coffee and looking exhausted. The trials were still ongoing. Hundreds of defendants across dozens of countries. She'd testified 18 times already, with more to come. But she smiled when she saw them. That soft expression reserved for quiet moments like these. How's the homework going, Em? Good. I'm writing about heroes. Catherine, are you and Daddy going to get married? The question hung in the air. Michael and Catherine had been dancing around it for months. Their relationship had evolved from alliance to friendship to something deeper. But the complexity of their connection, the distant blood relation, the trauma that had brought them together made everything complicated. Emma, Michael began, but Catherine interrupted. Yes, she said simply. If your daddy agrees? Yes. Michael stared at her, coffee cup frozen halfway to his lips. Catherine, I know it's complicated. I know we're second cousins, though legally that's not an issue. I know we met because of tragedy. But Emma's right. We're already a family. The paperwork is just details. Elizabeth appeared in the doorway, looking healthier than she had in years. The past year had been hard. Rebuilding a relationship with Catherine, processing 20 years of isolation, testifying repeatedly about her experiences. But she'd persevered, finding purpose in the foundation's work. Did I hear something about a wedding? She asked, eyes twinkling. Emma bounced in her seat. Catherine said yes, but Daddy hasn't answered yet. All eyes turned to Michael. He thought about Sarah, about what she would want. In his heart, he knew she would want him to be happy, Emma to have a complete family, life to continue despite loss. Yes, he said quietly. Yes, I agree. Emma squealed, launching herself at both of them. Elizabeth smiled, tears in her eyes. Lynn, ever present in the background, actually cracked a smile. But the moment was interrupted by Muller, who entered with a grim expression. We have a problem. Volkov escaped during a prisoner transfer. Intelligence suggests he's coming here to Boston. He blames all of you for his empire's destruction. The room tensed. But Emma spoke first. Let him come. We beat him before. We'll beat him again. Muller's expression softened slightly. Out of the mouths of babes, we have protection in place, but I wanted you aware. Don't let him control your lives through fear. That evening, they held a small celebration at the townhouse, just family and close friends. Emma had made a banner reading, "Finally," which made everyone laugh. But as the night wore on, Michael found himself on the balcony, looking out at the city, unable to shake a feeling of unease. Catherine joined him, slipping her hand into his. You're worried about Volkov. He's desperate. Desperate men do terrible things. Then we face him together, all of us. She leaned against his shoulder. I meant what I said about the marriage. It's not just for Emma, or because of circumstances. Somewhere in all this madness, I fell in love with you. The real you. Not the whistleblower, not the hero. Just Michael Torres, who mops floors and makes perfect triangular sandwiches and reads his daughter 3 stories every night even when he's exhausted. Before he could respond, his phone rang. Unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. Hello, Marcus. Volkov's voice was calm, cold. Or do you prefer Michael? I wanted to congratulate you on your engagement. How wonderful that something beautiful emerged from so much death. What do you want, Volkov? What I've always wanted. Order. You've destroyed a system that took decades to build. Do you have any idea what you've unleashed? The chaos that will follow? Creative destruction, Catherine said, loud enough for Volkov to hear. Sometimes you have to tear down the rotten structure to build something better. Ah, the idealistic Miss Blackwood. Your father would be so disappointed. He understood that power requires compromise. That purity is a luxury the world can't afford. My father died trying to make amends, Catherine shot back. Even he recognized the evil in what you'd built. Did he? Or did I simply tell you that's how he died? Volkov's laugh was chilling. The truth is so malleable, isn't it? But I didn't call to debate philosophy. I called to make an offer. One last chance, return what you've taken, the money, the companies, the power. Disappear quietly, and I'll let you live. All of you. Even the child. Go to hell, Michael said flatly. I expected as much. Very well. You've chosen your path, but remember, you could have saved her. The line went dead. Michael and Catherine rushed inside to find Emma safe, playing cards with Elizabeth and Lynn. But the threat lingered. Who was the her Volkov meant? They would find out soon enough. But tonight, in this moment, they were together. They were family. And that, Michael realized, was worth any risk, any threat, any sacrifice. Emma looked up from her cards. "Daddy, you have your worried face again." He forced a smile, sitting down to join their game. "Not worried, Princess. Just thinking about how lucky I am." "We're all lucky," Emma said matter-of-factly. "We found each other. That's what Mommy would say. That love finds a way, even through the sad parts." As they played cards, laughter filling the room, none of them noticed the shadow figure watching from the building across the street. Volkov's final game had already begun. But that's another story. One of resilience, of family forged in fire, of love that refuses to surrender.